Welcome to Leading the Way podcast, where you'll learn neuroscience-backed ways to lead more effectively and have more fun at work with what you already have. Hey there, it's Chris from Leading the Way. I am so excited to be here with you today with my amazing guest, Kari Schwear. Kari, thank you so much for being on Leading the Way.
Oh, thank you so much, Chris. I'm excited to get into it today.
It's going to be fun. It's going to be good. Well, Kari, not everyone knows about you yet, so I'm going to really quickly go through your amazing bio so folks have some real quick context. And then, folks, we're going to jump right in. It's going to be a great conversation. So, Kari is an executive lifestyle gray area coach, specializing in the many gray areas, which we'll talk about, that we have in our lives, particularly with gray area drinking. Her zone of brilliance, her zone of genius is in habit creation, communication, leadership development, and intentional living by design. As a former gray area drinker by herself, Kari founded Tonic and questioned the drink movement back in 2018 after her own experience of living in the gray led her to the many service of others, which she's done so brilliantly. She offers individual and group coaching for business leaders seeking wellness, performance, and better relationships without alcohol. Kari's also co-authored 2 books, The Successful Mind, Tools for Living a Purposeful, Productive, and Happy Life, along with her second book, which is a Wall Street #1 bestseller, Limitless. Kari, again, delight to have you on the show.
Oh, thanks so much.
So I'm going to, oh yeah, it's going to be great. Well, I'm going to be maybe a little bit mean and jump right in with, I think what a lot of people who are drinking are going like, what's the big deal, right? I have a glass of wine or a bourbon or a beer after work. What's the big deal?
Yeah, well, big deal. Okay, so that person may be in the gray area. So let's talk about gray area drinking because people may not have heard that term before. And I think it's really pertinent because the moment I heard it back in 2018, I was like, wait, what?
Right.
That's what I was. I wasn't an alcoholic. I was told that by society that if you drink too much, you must be an alcoholic and you got to go to AA and do the whole 12-step recovery thing, which I love this 12-step program. I love Alcoholics Anonymous. I think great program. Not for everybody. Wasn't for me because I wasn't an alcoholic, but I didn't know what I was. So when I heard the term gray area drinking on a podcast interview, and hopefully this is going to be that same spark for me as it will that for you as you're listening now, I was like, what? There's such a thing as gray area drinking? What is that? So gray area drinking is this wide spectrum of drinkers that falls in between somebody who is a light social drinker, that take it or leave it social drinker, and someone who is severely abusing alcohol. Chris, there was a study that came out last year in 2023 that talks about 75 million Americans identify as a gray area drinker. And that is the ones who even know about the term, right?
Wow.
So if you don't even know about the term, how do you know if you're a gray area drinker? So my guesstimation is probably double that, right? It's probably closer to 150 million Americans. The other stat that I want to share is that about 50% of those that consume alcohol may be in a gray area. So again, this is a huge number of people. And when I start describing it more in detail, you're going to get it because this is when people go, I could probably be a gray area drinker myself. So what is the big deal?
Yeah.
Well, gray area drinking can be very innocent. It can be not a big deal. I mean, it could be totally fine until it's no longer fine. And that's when you start to know it becomes a problem. So why is it a big deal? Because if you're starting to notice your drinking is affecting your mood, your performance, your energy, your relationships, how you feel about yourself, if you're waking up foggy, if it's carrying over a couple of days, it is then becoming a problem. If you feel like there's any sort of issue in your life, then it's an issue. So that's step number 1. Right.
Got it. That totally makes sense. And I'm guessing too, the other question I would imagine you'd hear is, hey, in Europe, they drink wine and beer all the time. Again, how is that different than someone who maybe starts to look at this as like a reward, right? At the end of the day.
Yes. Well, first of all, I'm not an advocate for any drinking whatsoever, but I'm also not on a crusade against alcohol. So I'm very neutral when it comes to this. I'm in the gray area. I'm like,
Nice.
on my opinion on alcohol. But here's what I do know about alcohol. Not one drop of it is considered good for you. It's not healthy. It's not beneficial. There's nothing great about alcohol. It's an inert object that we put all kinds of meaning on it. And when we have it, it does something to us physically because it does work. Alcohol
Mm,
absolutely works. It works to relax us. It works to erase our day. It works to feel like we're celebrating until it doesn't work, which is about 20 minutes later. Alcohol's effects only really are beneficial in that first 20 minutes of drinking. And then after that, you keep thinking you drink more, you're going to have more of that effect. Well, you don't get more of that effect except for now you're intoxicated and now you're going to pay for the price later on. Right.
mm,
So
mm.
here's the deal. If somebody's having one drink every so often, okay, no big deal, right? If it's not a big deal, like I said, if it's not a problem, it's not a problem. But the
Right.
moment it starts to become a problem is when it's a problem. So if your one drink is really more like two drinks, and we need to just briefly share about what a standard drink is. A standard drink is 1.5 ounces of liquor, or it is 12 ounces of beer, or 8 to 9 ounces of craft beer, and it's
Mm,
5 ounces of wine. That is considered a standard drink. Well, you know what, Chris? I was a wine drinker and I
yeah.
wasn't drinking just one glass of wine. I wasn't pouring a 5 ounce glass. Are you kidding me? I was pouring like an 8 ounce.
Right.
So if
Right.
I said, oh, I only had 2 glasses of wine, I had 16 ounces of wine. That is more than
Right.
three standard glasses when I thought I was only having two. So you see where this is becoming an issue. So we
Totally.
have to be honest with ourselves. Number one, gray area drinking is a choice. You get to be there or not. So there's
Mm,
that. The second thing is when it's no longer a choice is when you're physically dependent on alcohol. So then that's a different story. So you still have a choice to be there. And you have to be honest with yourself. It's the radical honesty within. If you are feeling these tingling inside or these intuitive notes, or what I call the Holy Spirit or inner spirit or gut, whatever you want to call it,
yeah.
listen to that voice. Listen to it because it's telling you the truth. You want to be paying attention to that. And a lot of times gray area drinkers will use the excuse, well, I'm not drinking any differently than so and so and so and so. It's so relevant and prevalent in my business and in my career and what I do. Well, guess what? It's prevalent and relevant everywhere. So that's just an excuse. Stop comparing yourself to other people because what they do is none of your business. You focus on you. And if you are feeling like crap and you're starting to have those internal questions inside, that's the opportunity that you have to go, okay, I need to stop and pause and really reflect on why I'm doing what I'm doing.
It's so interesting too. I'm with you. I mean, I spent much of my life as a mild drinker, gray area drinker, sometimes on the abuse side as well, just being honest. But as you get older, drink less.
Hmm.
It's interesting though, because the excuse engine is long, right? But just stopping for a couple weeks, there is no harm physically at all. Right. I mean, it's just when you face the facts there, it's
Yeah.
taking out the toxin for a couple weeks. There's zero harm in that versus continuing what you're doing
Hmm.
and putting toxins in your body and the after effects. And I think, as you so eloquently said, to escape whatever's going on. Well, after we come to the next day, those problems are still there. And then maybe they have some friends, right? It's so
Yeah.
there's not a benefit in, other than maybe stigma and pride and continuing to drink, if I'm hearing you right.
Yes. Yes. And that's the thing. And, I actually just came off another podcast interview and the host asked me, why is it that I might be able to have one glass of wine and 1 week and then a couple weeks later, I can't just have one. I want more. And then I end up going back into the same old patterns. Well, those
Yeah.
are familiar patterns that we've created inside of our heads. And so when we have things that are familiar to us, such as drinking, like, oh, I'm going to reward myself, or it's a celebration, or I had a really tough day at work, and we're associating the alcohol to those things, that becomes a hardwired pattern inside of us. And so when we stop and we reward ourselves by stopping, because it is a tremendous reward.
Yeah.
And then we end up thinking, oh, I'm okay. I can just go back and have one. And then you find out that it's really hard to say no to that second or third drink. And then you're back into the same old, same old. And then you're wondering, what the heck? Like,
Yeah.
I did so well. Like, why is this now a problem again? Well, it's like it's a pathway inside your head. So you might have a dormant pathway, a detour that you're forcing to make a different decision and forcing a different route inside your head. But when you decide to have that drink, guess what? That detour goes away and you're back full speed on that highway inside your head. And it's a familiar pattern that we're all too used to. And this is what creates relapses and struggling and the continuous loop in the cycle that is so hard to get through. Right. And
Yeah.
this is where people are like, well, they must be an alcoholic then. Not necessarily. Right? You could just be in a
Mm.
gray area. And I don't want to say just, because a gray area is still a place that you really need to pay attention to. And there are categories inside the gray. There's the mild, medium, severe categories of the gray area too. So you got to really be honest, and only you know how much you're really drinking. Only you know how it's impacting your life.
Yeah. So powerful. And, just reflecting too, folks listening to this podcast are leaders. Like what messages are you sending to your team? If a team celebration is about, a beer bust or whatever else. I've been at plenty of those in the tech world. That was a normal thing. The open keg, open beer, open wine, hard stuff. There's like this almost worship of alcohol in some of those things. And that'll sound awkward to people. I don't mean to be sacrilegious, but we are holding
Yeah.
it on this pedestal like it's a
Yeah,
special event and gift.
absolutely.
Um,
Absolutely.
and
That's
then what?
exactly how society views it. I mean, a lot of society views it that way. Like it is to be like a reverence for it. And that's so far from the absolute truth because it does nothing for us. There's no amount of alcohol that's considered healthy. Zero.
Right. Right. I've recently stopped. I'm not in your programs. I probably should be, but been dry for 90 days. And I think there's other times in my life I've been, but it's so interesting. And I'm curious if you see this with your clients. Once you start making the choice and get that
Mhm.
pattern, those habits going,
Yeah.
it's kind of easier to identify like, oh, I'm not someone who drinks anymore. Do you see that with your clients as they go through your programs?
Yeah. So you just hit on something that is like, oh, I just want to high five you right now because you talked about the identity piece. And here's where my program will differ from other programs because I spend so much time on the identity piece. And I use my own acronym. It's my own model. It's called the Decide Model of Change. And the Decide Model is an acronym. And I'll go through it really quickly because I think it's pertinent for people to know. So the D stands for a desire to make the change, right? We have to have the desire. It's the catalyst of all change. We got to start there, but that's not enough. I
Yeah.
mean, sheesh, I have a desire to, have a Ferrari in my garage, but it's not going to
Nice.
make it happen, right? Like, but we
Right.
got to start somewhere. So you need the desire. The E in the decide model is exploring your why. And Chris, I want to sit on this for a nanosecond. Exploring means to dive deep. We're not just like randomly picking
Mm,
a good idea. We need to go 5 layers deep on the reason why. And
mm,
most often what I hear, it has something to do with their health, their family, a relationship, their kids. It could be a career, it could be money situation, but 99% of the time it's a relationship. It has something to do with their spouse or their kids or their health. It's usually one of those three things.
mm.
And because that's a deep value. I
Right.
don't want to embarrass my kids anymore. I want to make sure that I'm present for my wife or my husband. I want to make sure that I'm a great leader and that I'm authentically living out who it is I'm supposed to be, and I feel like I'm not that person when I drink, right? But
Yeah.
even going deeper on that's what I'm saying. We want to find out what that is and then go 5 layers deeper by asking, why is that so important? So we do that
Mm,
all the way through. We get to the root reason. That then becomes their guiding north. It's like their anchor. Because as soon as something comes up down the road that's knocking them off their rocker, you need to know what that why is because we got to go back to it. We always got to go back to the why. The why is what keeps us steady. It keeps us going straight forward. And
mm.
without this grounding force for you, you're going to get knocked off your rocker at some point down the road. And so keeping that first and foremost. The C in the decide model is having a commitment to self. There's no back door. Zero. It's not 98%. It's 100% committed to your decision, committed to your why, committed to why you want to do this. And that
Mm,
involves investing into yourself with time and money and resources and energy. You can't just wish it. You know, there's
Right.
a great saying out there by Joyce Meyer. You don't need a wishbone, you need a backbone. So having 100% commitment will get you there. The
Nice.
I in decide is identity. You have to have an identity shift. Here's where I felt it was wrong for me inside of Alcoholics Anonymous. Going to
Mm.
AA was like, hi, I'm Kari and I'm an alcoholic. Okay, well, first of all, I wasn't an alcoholic, nor did I want to be an alcoholic. And it wasn't a denial. It was truly that I was in a gray area, but it was also keeping me feeling as though I will forever always need to be here and say that I'm an alcoholic. And with that becomes a lot of connotations. Now, some
Mhm.
people wear that with so much honor and pride, and for them, I'm grateful. But this is about me as an individual, and this is about you as the individual. You have to decide what feels good for you. My
Yeah.
identity was so rooted in my past trauma, my past issues. Well, it's because of this, and this, and that's the reason why I drank. And this is, this is my excuse. I wore it like a victim, right?
Mm.
So
Mm.
we need to recognize that who you believe that you are currently right now is dictating all of your behaviors and all of your actions. So we want to know
Mm.
what that is. So the first thing I do with my clients is I have them write out, who do they believe they are right now?
Wow.
Right now in this moment, I want adjectives. I want you to describe who you are. How do you see yourself? Then a couple days later, I have them write a second uh, note, and I want them to tell me, who do they wish to be 1 year from now?
Mm.
Everything, like, who is it they're aspiring to be? And when I see the contrast and they see the contrast, I've had so many grown men cry as they're writing who they wish to be, because
Absolutely.
it's so far from where they are currently
Right.
right now. And the beauty thing is, once they start working with me, they're at that year point within a few months. For
Awesome.
80% of their list, they're already there,
Wow.
because I'm shifting them in so many other ways. So the I is identity. The D is daily habits. Your
Mm.
daily habits are so crucial. So another thing I start with my clients with, I want to know what you're doing the first thing you get out of bed in the morning. And I don't
Yeah.
want to hear you go make your coffee. I mean, are you going to use the bathroom? Cause like, you gotta be human. You gotta go
Right.
to the bathroom, right? But like, what are you doing after that? I want to know every single step. I'm really helping them craft a morning routine and an evening routine and throughout the day that's going to set them up for success. What we
Nice.
do reflects on our outcomes, right? So I
Mhm.
want to know what they're doing on a daily basis. So we focus on their daily habits. And the E in the decide model is executing on those daily habits, but there's two more E's here, is through effort to get to expansion. If we have
Mm.
daily effort by executing on these daily habits, we will reach expansion, which is where they want to go in that year time, right? This is why once we get a plan in place, we have all these foundational pieces in place, they're able to catapult themselves into that desired year version of themselves pretty dang quick. So it's
Wow.
part of the process that I take them through. And on top of that, let's be real, Chris, I hold them accountable.
Yeah.
So if I don't, if they're falling behind on checking in or not doing the things that they need to be doing that's going to be helpful for them, I'm gonna correct them in a gentle, loving way as I do. I like to look at myself as the bumpers in a bowling alley. I'm there just to not let you fall in the gutter. I'm there to push it back in the center lane so you can hit the pins ahead and the goals ahead that they have.
So powerful. What a great framework and so useful. I'm curious too, and it's probably inherent in that, but I would imagine creating a sense of community of people like you that have
Mhm.
acknowledged their gray area drinkers and want to move out of it would be
Mhm.
important as well. Is that true, or can folks just be okay with this and then how do they reintegrate into their world? I guess is my question.
Yeah. And you know what? That's a really great question, because the number one thing that keeps people stuck in the gray area is like, oh my gosh, I'm not going to have a social life. My life is going to suck. I'm going to
Right.
be so boring.
Right.
We have all these internal conversations inside of our head. And yeah, so here's the reality. Yeah, your social life is going to change. And
Yep.
most often it's changing the people that you're with. It doesn't always have to be that way. But
Hmm.
I will tell you that, first of all, if you are hanging with people that's all they're doing is drinking, that's what they live for, that's what they're doing. Uh, Besides the alcohol, what's underneath that relationship?
Yeah.
And you got to be honest with yourself here. And this is tough because people love their friends, right? But when you
Right.
take away the alcohol and the fun and the partying, what's left? What
Right.
substance is there? So the quality of the people we spend with, you are the average sum of the 5 people you spend most time with. We know this quote from Jim Rohn. That is so very true. But when it comes to our relationships and who we spend time with, we want to be around those people that are edifying to us, that also are very similar with their behaviors and their actions and their aspirations. If you
Mm.
want to be somebody that you're not right now and you got some expansion work to do, then surround yourself with the right people that are going to help you get there. And that's part of the process. So community is huge. If you
Yeah.
have friends that are considering this, if there is support groups in your area, if you have working with a coach that has the opportunity to have a great community that you can do that, um, get yourself plugged in because that's part of the process, you
Right.
know.
It's so awesome too. I was thinking, just reflecting as you're saying that, I think a lot, well, some at least, and maybe a lot of us get into drinking early because it's quote unquote easy, right? Relationships are hard. It can be scary. Will the girl go out with me or not? Will the guy go out with me or not? Oh, we'll just drink and everything will be okay. And
We
then
hide behind it. We hide
we
our we
totally do.
it's the false facade that this is going to make me stronger, likable,
Right.
more confident, all these things. For 20 minutes, yeah, maybe, but then it just goes downhill from there. So you're setting yourself up for a disaster if you're not on top of this.
Yeah, 1,000,000%. I mean, there is no relationship there if that's all there is. It's
Mhm.
just you're sharing a addiction together or
Yep.
a gray area together. Now that's big. Um, I would imagine too, depending on how long this has gone, and I don't know the space, so I honestly
Mhm.
mean it's a question. Folks have maybe run away from things for a while, right? And they're going to this hoping that as an escape, and not a healthy escape necessarily. All those things are going to hit you, flat out as you start
Mhm.
choosing not to drink.
Mhm.
Um, what's that navigation like for folks? Because I would imagine some pretty big things from childhood or early life they're going to have to face up to.
That's right. And you just nailed the biggest nail in all of this, which is there's a reason why they were drawn to drinking in the first place. And
Yeah,
drinking it's not even the problem. Drinking's not the problem. It is so much deeper than that. It is all the underlying beliefs that got them there. What we
mm,
believe about ourselves absolutely dictates our behaviors and our actions. We see this, we know this is science. This isn't something I'm making up. This is all
yeah,
science related. This is how our brain works. And unfortunately, and I say unfortunately because a lot of our past history, all the way back to when we were born, we have translated those memories into facts for us and beliefs that aren't always exactly beneficial or true.
right,
And so from that, then we create scenarios or stories, limiting stories that have been imprinted on our nervous system and in our belief system that really create so much havoc for us, which is why it's so easy to turn to something like alcohol or smoking weed or whatever, because it's just an easy fix to escape what we don't want to feel. The reason
mm,
why people do things is because they don't want to feel it. They don't want to have to feel that their marriage is going in the tank. They don't want
right,
to have to feel like the discipline with their kids is no longer working. They don't want to know the facts that their business isn't all doing that great after all, and there might be in financial duress, and they don't want to have to face it. It
yeah,
works. Alcohol is such a great remedy for that because it
right,
absolutely takes your mind off of it. But then, the reality is the next day, all those problems are back and even then some, because now you've compounded your problems even bigger. And this is why drinking is not a solution. If anything, it is making the situation worse. So yes, when
yeah,
my clients work with me, we get through the drinking thing pretty dang quick. I'm saying like within 2 weeks, they're
nice,
great. They're good with the drinking. There's no more issues with the drinking. Now, do we have to stay on the maintenance program with that and like keep up on the daily intentions and the daily habits? And yeah, that's a continual game that we got to be doing, right? Same
right,
thing with me. 8 years later, I'm still doing all the things that keep me. It's very much living an intentional life, which is why I speak about being so intentional. Intentions are they're micro wins. They are present based. Having all those intentions equal the bigger goals that we want to reach. But we got to start with the
Mm,
micro wins. And that's what intentions are. They make us focus on what is right in front of us. And that's what gets us there. But once we start diving into the original root causes and what is getting them to that place of wanting to drink, because life is still going to happen. They're still going to
sure.
have life issues pop up. They're still going to get the flat tire. They're still going to lose the job. There's still going to be a sickness in the hospital. There's always something that we have to deal with. So self-regulation, understanding their nervous system, those are all parts of the things and processes that I take them through and that I help them with.
Boy, I love how comprehensive it is. And that's why I asked the question, because it's one thing to stop the thing, it's the other to face all the things you were doing before. And so it sounds like you do that with your clients. You mentioned a little bit on the other side of this, as folks work through the results they get, like the year-long goal they had in a month. What other sorts of results do you see as you serve your clients in the space?
Oh my goodness. Wow, we could be here all day. So the relationships completely shift.
Mm,
Health completely shifts. Um, their spiritual beliefs completely shift.
mm,
Um, and I'm talking big stuff. I'm not talking little stuff. We're talking surrender. We're talking repaired marriages. We're talking kids are grown children are having a relationship again. Most of my clients are older, so they have grown kids.
yeah,
But it's there's so much there. And it's also influence. So I work with leaders, right? Business owners and leaders. It's amazing to me. One of my current clients right now, he just said to me, "Oh my gosh, Kari, there's two guys that he's friends with that they're in a social circle that drink too much. They started seeing how well he's doing and how much his life has changed. And so he's become the go-to, the leader, the one that they're looking up to. And now he's been able to influence their decisions. And now guess what? One of these two guys is alcohol free now for 60 days just
love it.
because he's following the footsteps that he is doing. So that is the gift of what I get to do. It's not even just the person I'm actually working with, it's
Right.
all the trickle down effect that they're touching the other people in their lives. I mean, I have another guy, another client, same thing. He has a he has a job where he does traveling. He goes to conferences. It's a drink fest, as we all know at these conferences.
Yeah.
And his boss and his colleagues, they're all drink, 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 drink. And now he was so awkward in the beginning. He's like, oh my gosh, I'm the only one who's not drinking. I feel like everyone knows I got a problem. I'm like, uh, that's the story that you're creating. Nobody
Right.
cares about your drinking or not drinking. So we walk through all that. And now those people are saying, oh my gosh, how are you doing it? How are you doing it? And
Right.
now the latest was there was a guy that he saw a couple months ago. He's about 4 months in right now. 2 months ago, this guy also decided to give up alcohol and he got to see him recently and he said he was so excited to tell him that he's not drinking either and he said thank you for being the role model. This is
Yeah.
what I'm talking about. It's
Oh
not
yeah.
just the person I work with, it's all the people in their lives.
Love that. And so greatly said, like you create the example for others and give them permission to step into that if that's a right fit for them. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
the other part about this that I wasn't even thinking about until we started talking is I'm a big believer, I know you are too, is that there's all this brilliance inside people, right? And for whatever reason, people get stuck. Drinking can be one. It can be they're born with autism. It can be all these other reasons. They're shut down in their job. There's issues going on. And the world desperately needs the brilliance and the problem solving that we all have. And so if people can't show up fully because they're drinking, right, the world is robbed of all that brilliance.
Mhm.
And it sounds maybe woo and all that, but it's so important that
Yeah.
people can show up fully in every
Yeah.
part of their life and create solutions because we desperately need them. So it's what a awesome thing. Like you said, it's not about the drinking.
No.
It's about checking out and getting stuck there and thinking you have to be, and clearly you don't, right? I mean, you're such a great coach in this space, and you've got a full program for folks all the way through. So if they're afraid of, gosh, if I stop drinking, I've got to face the thing, there's a
Hmm.
guide to walk you through and face the thing, and it doesn't have to be 6 years of therapy wallowing in it
No.
either.
As a matter of fact, so now I'm also doing really deep breath work sessions with my clients. I'm certified in conscious connective circular breath work, and that's such a great way to tap in to healing. I mean, it's funny that the guy that I learned from, he always says he had a client that said, "Oh my gosh, 20 years of therapy, I had the same result in 1 hour with you." And
Nice.
I'm not claiming that to be true for myself, but I will tell you, you can have that much of a profound experience in one of these sessions where you're just like, oh my gosh, the things that you've been needing to hear, these imprints that you need to let go of that have been driving your life for so long. When you hear clearly from the inner part of you, the intuitive part of you, whether you want to, refer to that as God or source or universe or just the inner part of you, your higher self, when you really start to get answers to what has been holding you back, and that's freeing. That's the part. It's like we can make
Right.
tremendous progress just by doing some of this deeper work. And it's so wonderful. It's such a beautiful healing process. So yeah, I have a litany. I'm trained as an executive coach. I have trauma-based coaching, the breath work, obviously is a gray area coach, drinking, all the things. So
Nice.
I am very well versed, and I am able to hit it at different directions because everyone's different. Not every client that
Yeah.
works with me is there for drinking either. I mean, that's a majority of it, but not everyone.
Right.
So, it just depends.
Awesome. Awesome. Kari, how do people engage with you? Because they're going to be motivated by listening to this and maybe brave enough to take the next step. What does that look like?
I think the best way is you can find me on my website, graytonic.com, is GRAY, by the way. I have to spell it because, we're the only country in the United States that spells gray with an A. So it's graytonic.com. And you can get on my newsletter. I have a free download there for you as well, the Decide model. But you can also, if you go to LinkedIn, I'm the only Kari Schwear on social. I'm so easy to find. Connect with me on LinkedIn. It's my jam. I love LinkedIn. Just say, hey, I heard you on Chris's podcast, and any friend of and listener of Chris's is a friend of mine. So just shoot me a message. I'd love to hear your story, connect with you, and learn from you. So yeah, connect with me. I'd love it. I'm
Awesome.
very open to connecting with others.
Love it. Love it. We'll have that in the show notes. So as always, if you're driving or working out, don't hurt yourself. You can check it later and find that
Yeah.
and engage. Kari, thank you so much for being on Leading the Way. Before we close out, I always ask all my guests, what's something you're incredibly thankful or grateful about today?
Oh, today? You mean right, like as in today? I am expecting my first grandchild, like any
Oh,
minute. My daughter-in-law is starting with contractions, and it's my very first grandchild, and I'm super stoked. It's a little girl. I don't know her name,
oh,
but I know she's coming. So I'm
what an
excited.
amazing blessing. Boy, that's a lot to be thankful for.
Yeah.
Congratulations to you and the
Thank you.
family. That's
Thank
amazing.
you.
And thank you for being on Leading the Way. And for all of you listening, make sure to like, subscribe, and share this with a friend. You probably know someone that could give this a quick listen and get a lot out of it. Thanks so much for being on Leading the Way, and take care. Thank you for listening to Leading the Way podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe so you won't miss other great episodes like this one. And if you're ready for more in your workplace, be sure to go to aintent.com. You'll find lots of free tools, assessments, and ways to engage directly with us to get your own epic results. We'll see you there.